Can you talk to us about NAGPRA?
NAGPRA stands for the Native American Graves Repatriation Act. It was passed in 1990. Again, it's a very much needed statute. Prior to that, we had a very racist attitude about the digging up of Native American graves. So this law was long overdue. Again, the Antique Tribal Arts Dealers Association stand by the principle of this law. Unfortunately, it's a very vague law in the sense that when it talks about objects of cultural patrimony and sacred objects, this is a very, very unclear area. And what I can tell you, though, is that this law is directed towards federally funded museums. It's not directed at private collections. There are some federal agents that suggest that anything purchased after 1990 off federal land or state land is subject to NAGPRA, and that's probably correct. But if you have a collection that you put together prior to 1990 and decide to sell it in 1995, you are not subject to NAGPRA. It's actually solely directed at federally funded museums. That was the intent. And a lot of controversy about this law, and it hasn't been resolved yet because there's been very few cases that have gone to court based on the principles of NAGPRA. So this will have to be solved at a later date. But it just has to be made very clear that agents really cannot come into your home and take things that are deemed sacred by maybe a native traditionalist or a religious elder. You really have to violate the law based on, if I can give you maybe a more specific example, if you went to a pueblo and bought something off the pueblo, that perhaps would be the only time it applies to private individuals.
So a private collector doesn't have to worry about that if they want to purchase something of that sort?
No, if it's what's very important about both of these laws is that you have to do your due diligence. You have to start, even if you don't have a history, you have to start it today as to where you got it, how you got it, because it's going to become more and more of an issue. And as long as you try to find out these things, and even if there is not any information available, the courts will view it as like this individual did as much as they could. And that's how...
Are you saying just write it down like you would, like it's in your collection, and just say, I acquired this piece from this individual or this trader and so such and such a date, and try to remember what you paid for it? Or
Exactly. If Bob Gallegos sells Bing a couple of canteens, Bing should ask, well, where did the canteens come from? I'll try to give him as much information as I can, and that's creating the history or the provenience of a piece. And so things that were collected prior to 1990 and are documented as such are clearly things that you should be very comfortable in dealing in. So.
Very interesting. If anybody had any more questions about that, could be contacted for
well, I'm not.
Discussion? Or where would they find more about that?
Well, that's a good question. There's not a lot of experience accumulated yet in the legal world about this.
So there's no attorneys that maybe can
There are
advise
attorneys
people?
that specialize in it, but they'll tell you right now that there are issues that the government will have if they proceed on this, but we don't know what will happen until it goes through the court. And and when the judge comes up with, or the court comes up with a final conclusion. So it's
very interesting. Well, Bob and Bing, we'd like to thank you, especially Bob, today for contributing for one of our Kroz Bytes, and we enjoy your knowledge and experience, and we appreciate it very much.
I'd like to thank you too. I learned some things today that I didn't know, and it's been very interesting and knowledgeable to me.
well, well, thank you, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I don't know if you have like a blog or something, but if people write in and have specific questions,
We plan on having that.
we'll try to answer them the best we can.
That's wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you. We appreciate that very much.
You bet, Bob. Thank
Nice.
you.